There's this scene from the second episode of the new series Widow's Bay that stuck with me on first viewing, and honestly, in the grand scheme of the show, it was a tiny one. In the scene, the main character, Tom, is staying in a supposedly haunted hotel, viewing an old welcome video on an antique TV. The single-shot video focuses on a man ushering the viewer to follow him to see all the wonders that the fictional New England fishing village of Widow's Bay has to offer. The camera filming the video is clearly mounted on a tripod and just sits there watching as the man delivers his spiel and then unceremoniously walks away onto the beach and into the distance. It's an absolutely brilliant bit of filmmaking and storytelling that simultaneously brings up feelings of unease and fear while also being undeniably hilarious for the exact same reason.
Come with me. I'll show you around.
That's not how those videos are supposed to go. They're supposed to have a stock After Effects fade into a B-roll waiting for the first attraction to be showcased. Instead, we get this. It's just a bit off. Just a bit wrong. Was it just a mixture of low budget and incompetence, or something more sinister? Hard to say, since we've seen both by this point in the series. Tom disregards it anyway and moves on to his other concerns almost immediately, so we're stuck with these two competing emotions, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And that uncertainty is the real trick of the scene. The comedy and the horror are both coming from the same mistake. The call is coming from inside the house. They are not two divisible elements competing for our attention, and while this is the singular moment that stuck with me, the whole show is chock full of moments just like it. Comedy makes us happy and makes us giggle, gives us quotes to annoy our friends with, where horror simulates the feeling of danger. It makes us, for a short time at least, feel as though we aren't safe in our own homes. So how could two feelings so disconnected overlap? Well, Zach Kreger, the creator of Barbarian, Weapons, and the upcoming Resident Evil adaptation, has said that the two genres share one important quality. They are both about subverting expectations. They're both about timing and tone. Essentially, both are built on a similar rhythm, a build-up and release of tension. Or as Jordan Peele succinctly put it,
I talk about it as sort of like the difference between comedy and horror is the music.
In fact, it's why we've seen comedy creators find incredible success in the horror genre, especially in recent years. Jordan Peele, Zach Kreger, Diablo Cody, Curry Barker, John Krasinski, and of course the creator of Widow's Bay, Katie Dippold, who, with the rest of the creators of the show, are now up for multiple Emmys. Except while horror movies like Obsession, Get Out, or Jennifer's Body might have comedic moments within them, they are, at least in my eyes, squarely situated in the horror genre. Just as we probably wouldn't describe Marvel movies as comedies despite them containing arguably comedic elements. A true blend of the two, a piece of media both legitimately scary and funny, is ever elusive. Which is why I think Widow's Bay is so unique. Not only does it seamlessly blend the two genres in the context of an entire episode or the series as a whole, but often the same scene or even the very same shot will contain elements that are both, like that welcome video from the second episode. It's pure cinemagic, but really the coexistence of the two is predicated on the premise of the show, which is that the characters hide behind normalcy as a survival mechanism. The welcome video captures that collision in miniature. Its awkward presentation is funny, yet Tom treats it like just another Tuesday in Widow's Bay, allowing himself to be distracted away from the very clear wrongness within. That gap between what is actually happening and the ordinary behavior that the characters continue to perform is the foundation of the show's horror and its comedy. Patricia eventually abandons those ordinary rules. Wyck has built his entire life around the abnormal. And Tom spends most of the season trying to preserve that normalcy even after he knows it's no longer real. Together, they show 3 different ways of living with horror, and 3 ways that normal behavior can become ridiculous, terrifying, or both at once. Just a quick PSA, though I'm not going to break down the show episode by episode, there will be spoilers here. So please, for the love of the island, go watch the show first and then come back. If you usually ignore these types of warnings, please just let this be the first one that you actually listen to, because this show is 100% worth it, and watching the scenes that I'm going to be talking about will be much better if you don't already know what's coming. In many horror comedies, the characters and audience are granted some distance from that horror through meta-awareness of genre tropes. Take Scream, for example. It's a great film, but not always as terrifying as it ought to be. I wrote that last sentence fully aware that 6-year-old David would have strangled me for even thinking it, because he was absolutely terrified. As an adult, though, the movie hits different. And the reason the scares don't always land is usually because we, the audience, are constantly aware that the characters in Scream are aware of how things are about to go down. They are horror aficionados. They have slasher watch parties and take turns doing commentary about how to survive the Halloween films and when Jamie Lee Curtis's boobs will appear on screen.
When do we see breasts? I want to see Jamie Lee's breasts. When do we see Jamie Lee's breasts?
Breasts? Not until Trading Places in '83. Jamie Lee was always the virgin in horror movies. She never showed her tits till she went legit.
The case in point, Randy. In one scene, he's literally on the couch rewatching Halloween by himself, pleading through the screen for Jamie to just look behind her, where the killer is getting ready to pounce. All the while, right behind him, Ghostface is prepping his own stab fest.
He's right behind me, isn't he?
The scene puts some distance between us and the danger because it places a second frame around itself, sapping away tension by forcing the audience to engage with the irony. It's attempting to be both simultaneously funny and scary, but really only pulls off one of them by making a situation supposed to be horrifying look to the audience a bit ridiculous. In contrast, the boogeyman scenes in episode 8 use just as many recognizable horror tropes, but they never let the characters step outside the danger to comment on them. The comedy stays inside the situation, allowing us to laugh without sapping any of the methodically built tension away. The Boogeyman, an homage to Michael Myers and Leatherface, among other slasher villains, is a character that's been built up throughout the season as a serial killer that terrorized the young girls of Widow's Bay years before the show begins. His infamy rises as we learn that Patricia, the best character in the show, is ostracized by her peers because she claimed the boogeyman came to her house as well. But she hid under the bed.
How clever. I can't believe none of the other girls thought to hide. Oh wait, they did. Samantha was stabbed and then she hid in the dryer. Of course, he turned it on and, well, she baked to death.
By episode 8, both the audience and the main characters are fully aware that the supernatural dangers of Widow's Bay are very real. We've seen some shit. So, when Patricia's turning out the lights, getting ready for bed in complete silence, and then finds a door she thought closed is now partially open, that's all it takes. There's been no sign the boogeyman has returned, but both she and we are fully aware what that open door means without any words or meta-commentary necessary. She sits there, utterly still, contemplating her next course of action, which turns out to be exactly what we wish Jamie Lee and all the other classic horror protagonists would do. Do not go into the creepy dark room. Do not try to turn on the light. Do not just shrug and go back about your business. Just silently back away from the door, down the stairs, and grab a weapon from the drawer. Oh, and here is the first comedy element. The taser has a low battery. Shit. It's such a mundane issue that receives a brief giggle while still allowing us to stay in that tense moment with Patricia, since now she only has her wits to defend herself with. All the while, there's no talking, no monologues, just utter silence, save for some low rumbling background to ratchet up the tension. Remember, we still haven't even confirmed that the boogeyman is really there. Then, once he finally is revealed, he is an absolute send-up of the classic horror stalker. Everything we were promised. Silent, masked, butcher knife in hand, seemingly indestructible, and with a proclivity to slowly walk behind his sprinting victims at all time, while curiously never losing ground. It has all the tropes of the classics, but isn't a parody. Visually speaking, it's treated with utmost seriousness. Eventually, Patricia finds the one house with the lights on and people awake, owned by the woman who disbelieved her teenage stories of the boogeyman, Chris. In the light of a well-lit living room filled with socialites, Patricia looks absolutely insane. We all know how much danger the women here are in, but this person that barged in with an oversized tee and taser is already the girl that cried wolf. Chris had decided who Patricia was years before, and every frantic thing Patricia does only seems to confirm it. The audience sees a woman fleeing a killer. Chris still just sees the lonely liar girl who has once again barged into a social gathering and made herself the center of attention.
Everybody knows that she lied about the calls.
All right, I lied about the calls.
I knew it.
Oh my God.
Later, when Patricia is saved from being stabbed by an errant EMT truck, she tries to tell them that the boogeyman isn't dead, but is ignored yet again.
He's alive.
No.
Whoa.
Give me your keys, I'll run him over.
What?
Give me your keys, I need to run him over.
Of course the EMTs decline. Who wouldn't? The comedy in both scenes comes from the tension between Patricia finally accepting the reality and danger of the situation, while everyone around her continues to operate in their normal social roles. It happens over and over again in the show, especially this episode. The EMTs see an injured man, so they go to save him. Later, a gas station clerk sees a guy on fire beside a fuel pump, so he puts him out. Every sensible response accidentally makes Patricia's situation worse. I mean, doesn't she know how dangerous it is to have a flame next to a fuel source? This crazy lady is trying to destroy their livelihoods. The Jason-looking motherfucker with the butcher's knife? Probably a bro. Better make sure he's okay. She finally gets him though, and oh my god, the catharsis for the episode was absolutely incredible. I can't remember the last time I laughed that hard and that long at a TV show, any TV show, let alone one that twisted me up in an anxiety pretzel for 30 minutes straight. By this point, Patricia's apparent irrationality has become the only rational response left. Everyone who followed the rules of ordinary life accidentally helped the boogeyman. She survived because she finally accepted those rules no longer apply. So when she finally puts the boogeyman down with a shotgun, she does the exact thing we're all screaming at horror protagonists to do. The same thing Randy would have, screamed. Make sure. And you better believe Patricia made damn sure. She made sure when the ambulance arrived, she made sure in the coroner's exam room, she made sure when he was put in the cremator, she even made sure when his ashes were removed. Patricia made sure. Josie and I were in tears at this point. Something about the absurdity of holding a shotgun to a pile of ashes, mixed with the relief that the danger had passed, and all of it set to Caribbean Blue by Enya is just fucking beautiful. Oh, and somebody had better be prepping the best supporting actress in me for Kato Flynn's performance here, because she absolutely deserves it. I didn't even talk about this scene.
You had your qualms! Why didn't you say anything? You told me to be supportive!
Quick interruption here. If you're enjoying the video so far, please consider giving it a like and subscribe. It genuinely helps out a lot. You could also leave a comment. You could leave a nice one like Still and Rabu did, who said, "Your video convinced me to watch the show. Thank you for that." Oh, thank you, Still and Rabu. Or you can leave a mean one, like Respectable Username did, who said, "Hey guys, here's points people with a lot of views already made about the show. Unnecessary pick-me-boy politics and nostalgia bait. Enjoy. Dead face." Well, I'm glad you enjoyed. Or you can leave a neutral comment, like CK Oberstein did, who said, "You forgot to mention what Alan thought of the penis." On second thought, maybe just watch the video. Patricia survives because she finally accepts that normal rules no longer apply. Wyck has understood that for years and has survived by making the abnormal his new normal. When we first meet him, Wyck seems like the local town crank, obsessed with the mythology of Widow's Bay, and convinced that every sailor's tale of soul-stealing fog, sea zombies, and murderous groomer mayors are all true.
Seems he coveted the captain's young bride.
How young?
16, I believe.
How old was he?
53. Why? She loved him.
Of course, Tom, the mayor of Widow's Bay, is skeptical at first, because who wouldn't be? Wyck's willingness to drop one impossible tale for another the moment the first one fails to land, plus his fog paranoia in the first episode that winds up being a nothing burger, both lend credence to the feeling that he's just full of shit. This is where most of the comedy around Wyck lies. He delivers each one of those impossible-sounding warnings in a way fishermen would tell you to never trust a wet deck, like they're just common-sense issues that everyone should understand. Then he gets pissed when they don't. Of course, we, the audience, aren't watching the show in a vacuum. We can read the title card, we can watch the trailers, so we know that he will be vindicated. But the progression of that vindication is what sets him apart. For contrast, take Bert from the creature horror classic Tremors. Both Wyck and Bert occupy the same role for their fictional world, but the difference is in how they got there before the camera started rolling. Bert really was just a crank prepping for the apocalypse. If the movie were set in 2026, he'd have his own YouTube channel doing MRE tier lists and hawking suspect water purification tablets with a discount code. Yet when the graboids finally surfaced, his obsession was vindicated and he was triumphant. Wyck, on the other hand, was always right, at least on the main points, the things that mattered. His character is like if the writers expanded on that one dude from South Park telling you to not go down that road.
You want to go to South Park? You got to go down that road. Course, I ain't never seen anyone go up that road.
Wyck's knowledge and expertise weren't a happy accident like Bert's, nor were they gained from watching too many horror flicks, like Randy. Instead, they were gained from a lifetime on the island and at least one personal run-in with its darker side. Wyck spends the first 3 episodes trying to convince Tom that the island is dangerous and that bringing tourists there is a catastrophically bad idea. Tom dismisses him until his own encounters with a hag and a haunted hotel make that skepticism impossible to maintain. Only then does the mayor finally go to the town crank for help. The hotel episode with Tom also establishes the broader culture that Wyck has spent his entire life navigating. Everyone knows something is wrong, but acknowledging it would disrupt the ordinary systems keeping the town afloat. So really quickly, I want to take a second to appreciate this one scene from the hotel, which does so much with so little. The island's only inn is notoriously haunted with ghosts, stretching back generations, and in an attempt to prove the superstitions unfounded in episode 2, Tom stays overnight alone. He has an encounter with one of the ghosts, which is itself terrifying, but the part I want to focus on is what happens the next day. The hotel owner clearly knows his place is fucked, but also knows that to say so out loud would mean his investment would be completely ruined. One room in particular has some strange effects on its occupants, a la 1408 by Stephen King. So, under peer pressure from both Tom and the sheriff, the hotel owner stays in the room first for 10 seconds and then for 30 by himself. And without any dialogue, explanation, or any view from the inside during his brief stint, we're able to see the result. When the sheriff opens the door, the owner quickly exits, shaken, and behind him we see the room is torn up, the desk ransacked and its contents strewn across the floor. Wallpaper partially torn off the walls, and curtains in shambles. Again, nothing is said by any of the parties involved, but it's immediately clear what went down. With the door closed, anything can happen in the room, like time dilation or creepy welcome videos playing on every channel. After 10 seconds, he was already begging for food, and after 30, he clearly started to go insane, desperate to escape, but apparently unable to go out the main door. The owner does not need to explain what happened because everyone present understands it. They simply refuse to verbalize what they can all clearly see, which is the exact opposite of Wyck. So anyway, back to him. Tom reluctantly goes to Wyck for advice on the hag, but he's still skeptical and doesn't believe the man's stories about her. Or at least he doesn't want to admit it. But later in the night, when he is supernaturally paralyzed with the hag standing over him on the lazy boy ready to pounce, he realizes that the man was right. Every one of Wyck's predictions about the hag had come true, and his denial of that truth and attempts to go about living a normal everyday life had nearly cost him everything. He later asks Wyck why any of this is happening. Why him? Why now? Wyck just responds,
I don't know. You just survive it.
And later, he expresses that same philosophy a little less poetically when Patricia is distracted by her own emotional crisis.
You can file that under, deal with it the fuck later.
Both are perfectly Wyck-branded answers. Tom is asking for some grand explanation for the supernatural forces rearranging his life, and Patricia is bringing him yet another cosmic horror, and Wyck basically just responds with a shrug. Both answers are brutally anticlimactic. The second one even got a chuckle out of me, yet the hag remains dangerous, and Patricia's crisis remains real. This is the core of Wyck and the gravitational center around which his humor orbits. Deal with it as it comes. The supernatural event is just another banal task to be managed. It's also why he's such an interesting character. He's not really privy to the cosmic goings-on of Widow's Bay. He's not meta-aware, like a Randy character. He is a bystander, a victim, an observer. The bulk of his knowledge is born from experience and tragedy and fragments that he has inexpertly pieced together from the Historical Society's records. But that's still enough to save Tom, who would have died without his intervention. Later in the series, in episode 7, we learn how he came about that knowledge. When he was just a kid, during one of the island's bad times, he and some friends stole a boat and took it into the ocean. See, a part of Widow's Bay curse is that it doesn't let natives go past a certain threshold in the water, and the island takes it personally. So when they did that very thing, their boat was attacked and capsized by a large tentacled monster. Wyck barely managed to get away, but only by essentially sacrificing his friend, Mark, who was trying to grab onto him for help. Of course, Wyck was just a kid, and he was just attempting to save himself. Likely there was nothing he could have done to save Mark, but he still sees himself as guilty. With that one piece of information, so much of Wyck is brought into focus. Imagine one of your core memories being a citywide lockdown, missing people, and barely surviving a run-in with a fucking kaiju. Yeah, you'd probably be a little crazy too. So while he is paranoid over folklore and obscure island history and crazy-sounding things like pirate zombies, it's all based on real experience paid for with blood, grief, and guilt. That obsession is how he converts trauma into something usable. If the island has rules, even incomplete ones, then what happened to Mark could have meaning. It becomes evidence, a warning even, something that might help the next person survive. Unfortunately, unlike the idealized prepper fantasy, Wyck's groundwork only ever serves to make him feel more helpless, Dunning-Kruger in effect. In fact, not only is Wyck openly mocked for his own obsession, the things he has learned are at best incomplete and oftentimes wrong. His knowledge and experience don't give him any kind of mastery over the island. Even when Wyck is right about something, the details are often left wanting. It's a limitation that makes him feel more real and more relatable, since it means that he isn't some encyclopedia on the island that has the solution to every single problem. His experience has merely taught him that certainty is not required before action. That is the radical acceptance Wyck represents, and how he fits into the show's unique blend of horror and comedy. Sometimes all he has is a pattern or a bad feeling, and he accepts that while he may never fully understand Widow's Bay or the curse, he prepares anyway, because in a very real, very raw way, he knows what can happen when he doesn't. The humor comes from the normalization. The sadness comes from understanding what it took for him to get to that point. When the series begins, Mayor Tom is the most skeptical person on the island about the superstitions surrounding Widow's Bay. However, that disbelief in what he sees as just more fishermen's tales is just the first expression of a deeper instinct that remains even after he learns the truth. Tom believes that any crisis can be contained through composure, a sufficiently reasonable explanation, and some good old-fashioned governmental administration. Tom is a pretty clear send-up of the disbelieving mayor archetype, specifically a character like Mayor Vaughn from Jaws. Both mayors know that publicly acknowledging the crisis could destroy the town's economy, and they use that economic threat to justify exposing people to danger. Initially, Tom and Vaughn are pretty closely aligned on this. After episode 3, however, the hazard becomes very personal for Tom vis-a-vis the hag. By this point, he's already had 2 run-ins with the island's haunted nature, and when one of those was ready to smother him to death by sitting on his face, in this case, not as awesome as it sounds, it was kind of impossible to ignore. Yet despite his abandonment of disbelief, he still harbored the instincts that produced it. With enough composure and the right procedure, anything can be brought under control. And the town's struggling economy, not sea monsters of myth, is priority 1. In the very first episode, we're given a glimpse of who Tom is through Wyck's eyes. As a kid, he would come to the island, not being a native himself, and would try to impress the islander kids by ding-dong ditching.
You never actually did it, did you?
What?
No, see, I was watching. I'd see you sneak up to my door and pretend to ring the doorbell. Then you'd run back to impress the local kids, laughing and take all the glory.
This conversation puts a bit of a chip on Tom's shoulder throughout the series, as he constantly tries to prove the outsider characterization incorrect by personally putting himself in peril. With the hotel, with the hag, with the inaugural swim, with the crazy mushroom trip, and eventually driving into the supernatural storm itself. Yet I'd argue that much of it was performative bravery. Ultimately, Wyck was right. Tom tried every avenue to postpone doing the hard thing, being a responsible leader, admitting he was wrong, sending the tourists home, and doing whatever necessary to protect his constituents. Again, just like Vaughn, Tom has competing responsibilities, keeping the islanders safe while also bringing in the tourism dollars that Widow's Bay has so sorely lacked. But where Vaughn protects normalcy by denying reality, Tom accepts the crisis as real but still believes he can protect that normalcy by translating it into administrative problems instead of direct confrontation. In fact, that approach is such a focus of the show that there are scenes that could have been ripped straight from a Parks and Rec Halloween special, which is unsurprising given Katie Dippold's pedigree as a writer for that show.
I want more tourists.
I'm ready.
I want more money coming into the island.
Yeah, right.
And we sure as fuck aren't canceling the fucking fireworks!
Now, Matthew Rhys, who plays Tom, isn't exactly known for his comedic chops, and even in Widow's Bay, he doesn't really deliver any zingers. However, Rhys's physical comedy shines here, usually in the subtle gestures or facial expressions when Tom is trying to process very real danger or impossible supernatural information, all while attempting to maintain professionalism and decorum. For instance, this scene in episode 7 where the undead first mayor of Widow's Bay explains the curse of the island and how the pact he made is tied to this little piece of paper that he wears in a necklace. Just watch Tom's reaction here.
And I signed that pact with my own blood, feces, and semen.
Or in episode 5, where Tom is shown an otherworldly, third-eye opening drawing that purportedly reveals the secrets of the island.
Yeah, man. Yeah, take that in.
Or later in that same episode when Tom is high as a kite on mushrooms, peering through the car windows to find his son. I'm just gonna let this one play. Reese plays each revelation as though Tom is trapped in a meeting that has become progressively more inappropriate, but that he's still professionally obligated to finish. Like when he's trapped in a meeting room, zooted on mushrooms, which is obviously inappropriate, while still being professionally obligated to finish. His restraint makes supernatural information funny, but it also shows how deeply Tom needs the role of mayor to protect him from what he's hearing. It becomes horrifying once Tom's need to appear in control begins determining public policy during a crisis that's visible to everyone. In episode 9, when the storm of the century is bearing down on the island, he delays sounding the warning sirens. It would mean all those tourists would have to spend their remaining vacation days in a storm shelter. And more importantly to Tom, would signal that he was wrong. Yet his response still reads as comedic at first, because of the contrast between the scale of the impending danger and his relatively meaningless concerns. Communications with the mainland are down, yet he's worried about how Widow's Bay will look on TripAdvisor. He's worried about what the tourists will say about their little island getaway when they get back home, but Patricia has a pretty apt response.
At least they'll get back home.
At this point, his avoidance has turned into tacit complicity, since his delayed action is literally getting people killed. Finally, though, he does the right thing in sounding the siren and getting everyone in the storm shelter. Tourism be damned. This is the main way that Tom sets himself apart from Vaughn. Vaughn's dereliction got many people killed. He repeatedly refused to implement sound, rational measures to prevent the danger, remaining an obstruction until a fisherman and a police chief solved the problem for him. So the choice to focus on a mayoral candidate like Tom gives us the unique chance to see what happens when that stock character can no longer deny the danger, must continue governing, and finally admits that the old rules can no longer save anyone. The welcome video that Tom watched during his stay at the inn is baffling in its ability to be hilarious while simultaneously filling us with a sense of dread. The whole show is like this, pulling us in two directions at once, but importantly in ways that harmonize. Hell, in the background of the next episode, we see a similar video where the mayor is once again introducing the town before silently turning around and Blair Witching it in the corner. Are the videos funny because of the islanders' incompetence, or are they frightening because something is so fundamentally wrong? I think we can now answer the question. It's both. And that's why the show doesn't just work, it works really well. Something is visibly wrong, yet the presentation of just about everything on the island continues humming along as though nothing happened. And through the three main characters, we see some of the forms that the Islanders' relationship with normalcy can take. That shared relationship with normalcy is what allows the show to produce horror and comedy at the same time. It doesn't follow the typical progression of tension built to release through horror or comedy. Instead, behavior that is eliciting a laugh is often the exact same thing that is causing the feeling of dread or danger. Like the gas station attendant, or EMTs trying to perform their jobs and accidentally saving the boogeyman, or the hotel owner protecting his investment by refusing to acknowledge what everyone saw in the haunted room, or Tom tripping on mushrooms and seeing the infinite void while trying to field questions at the town council meeting. That is the show's contribution to horror comedy. It doesn't need to pause the horror to make room for a joke, because the joke is often the thing that allows the horror to continue. Katie Dippold and the other creatives behind the show have hit gold with this formula, made clear by the numerous Emmys they've been nominated for. And honestly, I wasn't prepared for what I found on her resume. There was, of course, Parks and Rec sitting there like a character witness to her writing chops, but then her other writing credits are Haunted Mansion, Reboot, Ghostbusters 2016, Reboot, and Snatched. Not exactly a list of my top 3 favorite films, but it goes to show that a few bad films do not a bad writer make. And honestly, kind of stepping back, it makes a weird sort of sense. Widow's Bay feels like the place where the skills behind those different projects finally converged. Supernatural spectacle, broad comedic instincts, character-based reactions, and the bureaucratic absurdity of Parks and Rec. That's what makes Widow's Bay feel like a genuine revitalization of horror comedy. The people of the island keep going through the motions of their daily lives and daily worries even after reality has stopped feeling real. The first season also leaves Widow's Bay wide open. We still only understand fragments of the curse. The town's history is full of holes, and most of the islanders have barely begun to reckon with what happened. There are plenty of monsters left, but more importantly, plenty of ordinary people left to respond to them badly. The show has built something that could keep producing new stories without running the same joke into the ground, which leaves me with one question. Katie, whatever blood, feces, and semen-soaked pact you signed between Snatched and Widow's Bay, can you please renew it for season 2? Though maybe don't wear it around your neck, and definitely wash your hands afterward.